Page 38, Minuet. This is Opus 14, number 1 by Paderewski. Already we got questions. Well, just briefly, because I'd like you to understand this stuff as best you can. That Opus 14, number 1 thing, what's going on? Well, an opus is the publisher's way of numbering or identifying the pieces that a particular composer is having published. That's the simplified version. Opus 14 means it's the 14th one or group that this publisher has done for this composer. Number 1 tends to indicate that there's more than one piece in this opus. It could be a collection of things. Who knows? Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. Sometimes an opus is just one piece. Other times it has multiple pieces. And that's how they do it. It helps because if you want to search on it to find out a recording or what it sounds like, you can search on this Opus 14 number 1 and probably be sure to find it than without the opus number. Just make sure you include the composer's name, because every composer has their own. It's not unique for all. It's other composers have an Opus 14. Is what I'm saying. Yeah. Now in this piece, I'm going to start with the right hand. It's a 3/4 time, so it's 3 beats and a measure. So we only have to count to 3. Yay! Quarter notes getting a count. But if you look at the first measure, they put in a triplet. And I count triplets as 1 and 2 and 3 and, because playing eighth notes is 1 and 2 and 3 and. So 1 and 2 and, some people you can just say triplet. If it's a tricky counting system, you might just say triplet, triplet. So in the first measure, the right hand starting out third finger on the G, it would be 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 1. Or 1, 2, triplet, 1, 2, triplet, 1. There are other countings, but that's all I do, so that's what I teach, so there you are. And that's really all it is. That's the tricky part about this. Now let's go down a little bit further on page 38 in the right hand. Third line down, G. But now you got to come up, fifth finger on C. So I suggest you're going to lift your hand up. See the slurs? And that is it. So we want to break in the sound between the half note G and the C. So you're going to lift up and move. So just lift up and move. It's just one key. If they were connected, no break. If you wanted to connect the G and the C, then I'd say just reach out with the little finger and do it. But since it's a break in the sound, you can lift up. Until you get to the top of page 39. Now we're going back down to put the G on, or the third finger on the G. So you got a quarter rest, you got time to move down. And watch the F sharp. And then second measure are staccatos, and watch the fingering. This is important. It's thumb on the first one, but fourth finger's on the other. Fourth finger on the others. Yeah. So starting at measure 8 there, the first measure on. Just pluck it, just a nice finger staccato. Second line. I'll come back to this when I get to the left hand, because now we got 1 and 2 and 3 and, but the left hand's helping us out. Third line down, again staccatos. Reach down with the thumb to get that B, like so. Now for the left hand, go back up to the top there at the beginning on page 38. The first note, I hope you know what that is. If you don't know what it is, you might need to go back and review, because being able to read notes above and below the staff is important. These little lines that these notes are on are called ledger lines, and I still think you should memorize the notes at least to 3 ledger lines above or below on either clef. So this one, you know middle C is one ledger line above. Look at the second measure on the half note. That half note, that's middle C. That's one ledger line above the staff. Well, the first note is two ledger lines above the staff. They're the first measure. And lines are every other note. So if the C is one ledger line, then two ledger lines has to be an E. That's the way it is. The spaces are the other notes. So if I take the space right above the top line on the staff, on the clef, on the bass clef, it's a B. But then the space is going up, etc. Every other note. And you can figure it out that way. But I'm hoping you'll get to the point where you just look at that first note in the left hand and you know instantly it's an E, because you just memorized it. And that's where your hand goes. So you're up here for a lot of this until you get down to the bottom of the page, on page 38, last measure. Now you got to move down and put your thumb on the middle C. You got a couple rests, you got time, so just move it. Then at the top of page 39, they put in a note, move to C position. You don't need the note. What you do is you read the note in the staff, in the second measure, that's a D. And the finger number they want you to use is the fourth finger, so you put your fourth finger on it. That's your position. You have a quarter rest to move in, so you're here, and you can go here. Now those are staccatos. You're using a finger staccato in the right hand. You can use a finger staccato for the first note in the left hand, but when you have multiple notes at a time, a wrist staccato works better than trying to pluck multiple fingers. So it's, and if it'll help you and make it easier for you in the left hand, just use wrist staccato for all of those. Now it can get tricky if you're trying to do a wrist staccato in one hand and finger staccato in the other. You know, that's a. If that's not working for you, then you'll have to use wrist staccato in both. And just use wrist staccato on the right hand. That may work better for you for now. Eventually, you'll want the independence of being able to do one thing in one hand and a different thing in the other. Eventually. Now, let's talk about that measure I want to talk about before. Second line, second measure on page 39. The left hand's here. It's going to play the 8th note G, and then the right hand plays the rest of the 8th notes. So your right hand is here. So it's 1 and 2 and 3 and. So just those 4 8th notes, that's why they're beamed together. It's just 2 and 3 and. You connect them. They give you an optional pedal thing. Personally, I would prefer you just leave out the pedal here. If you're only going to use the pedal in that one little thing, don't bother. It's just, in my opinion, I would like a little break in the sound between the first and second beat in that measure. Between the quarter note and the first 8th note. In order to get a break in the sound, you can't be using pedal, or the pedal is covered up. So to play that second line for you, it's here. And then connect it to the next measure. And that's pretty much the left hand. Now the fermata at the end I'm going to hold for 6 counts instead of 3, because that's what I do with fermatas. I just double it when I'm playing with a metronome. If you're not playing with a metronome, you just hold it out as long as you feel it needs to be held, or until you get tired of hearing the notes or whatever. I don't know. Dynamics, look at the dynamics. At the beginning it's piano. P for soft. That's the melody. That's the right hand here. So the left hand's got to be very soft. Goes. Don't play them the same. I hear beginners play like that all the time, and I think, is it really that difficult to play one hand louder than the other hand? If I would encourage you to work on it. So in this case, play the right hand louder than the left, so it's this way. Pedal-wise, they're indicating pedaling the last line on page 38 and then that one measure on page 39, and in my opinion I would encourage you not to pedal that, any of it. The reason is because these slurs are really important to this piece, and if you use the pedal you're going to cover them up. So, and the last line on page 38, we want this, we want a little break between them, break. And in the left hand, we have a rest, so you get the break built in. Rest, rest. But if you use pedal, you cover all that up. So I'm encouraging you not to pedal this piece at all. Just that last line, it starts here. Plenty of other pieces you can use pedal on. You're not going to use pedal just for the sake of using pedal. That seems to be what this book is doing, and I disagree with that. But I'm kind of putting up with it in some of these pieces, but not here, no pedal. And that's about it here. It has a poco ritardando at the end, there are the last couple measures, which means slow down a little bit. But you can do that on your own. With the metronome, it don't slow down, so I'm not going to slow down. Dynamic-wise, they're not really doing a lot in this piece. It starts out soft, and then over on page 39, you can get up to medium loud, and that's about all they do. But the idea is you're not going to stay there, and they don't give you that. So a teacher would tell you when to do it. Well, you don't have a teacher, maybe, which means you got to figure out when to do it. So learn the piece first, and then how do you feel? Where do you think it might get a little louder and softer? Not a lot. It never gets loud, and it never gets super soft. It's just hovering around that soft part on the first page and the medium loud part on the second. You just, whatever. So you start, come on. And then at the last line, the natural accent's the first beat of a measure. So on those, that half note G in the right hand gets a little more, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then over page 39, then you can get a little louder. But then at the last measure of, in the second measure of the second line, you have that crescendo. Well, you got to come down from your medium loud in order to crescendo back. So it's the second line. And then start those eighth notes soft, and then come back up. So experiment with the dynamics, that you make it yours. Let's play this together. I'll give us 3 counts. So go ahead and put your right hand here, left hand here. Oh, the Sharon E, isn't that nice? 1, ready, go. 1, 2, triple up, 1 and 2 and 3 and out. Hold, 2, 3, off. There is a duet part at the bottom, so I'd like to play that, and you play your part, but I'm going to speed it up a little closer to performance. I'm going to give us 3 counts. Let's try this out. I need you to move up an octave. So instead of here, go up here. Just pretend middle C went up an octave and you're here. And play it an octave higher. It'll sound a lot better. Because the bottom part, the duet part, is using these notes. 3 counts. Here we go. Put your hands up here where they go, wherever they go. Now here we go. 1, ready, go.